The blade was still in her hand. That was the thing she would remember afterward, not what he said, not the candlelight, not even the name he had used when he said it. What she would remember was that the blade was in her hand and she did not use it, and that this was the first time in 6 years of contract work that her hand and her training had looked at the same situation and arrived at different conclusions. Varric had not moved from the doorway. He was holding the candle with the same steadiness he seemed to bring to everything, and his eyes were on her face rather than the blade, which told her something she was not yet ready to name. She made herself speak first. Lady Ashvale would not have, but Lady Ashvale was becoming a costume that fit less well with every hour she spent inside this castle.
You used my name, not the name I arrived with.
No. Not that one.
Then you know what I am.
I know what you were sent here to do. Whether that is the same as what you are is a question I have been sitting with since yesterday morning.
She did not lower the blade, but she did not move toward him either, and after a moment he stepped fully into the archive and set the candle on the desk beside the open ledger, and the light between them steadied, and she looked at the circled name again, Sable Orryn. She needed to think clearly, so she forced herself to reconstruct him from the beginning. Sable Orryn, keeper of records for the Hollow Hand, the man who sat at the deepest level of the sanctum below, in his cold-lit room full of sealed cases and bound ledgers, the man with a ring on every finger of his left hand and a carved bone stylus, and a smile that had never once in her experience reached his eyes. The man who had placed the sealed contract in her hands with the care of someone handling something valuable. The man whose name was written in a Caelmoor ledger recording payments made over 4 years, the last entry dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, before the contract was issued, before she had been sent. She lowered the blade.
Tell me what this is.
Varric pulled out the chair from the desk and sat down, not in the manner of a man making himself comfortable, but in the manner of a man who had been standing under a weight for a long time and had decided it was finally time to put it down.
Aldrich Fane has been corresponding with someone outside Caelmoor for 4 years.
Aldrich Fane has been corresponding with someone outside Caelmoor for 4 years, he said. I have known this for 2. What I did not know until 6 weeks ago was who. The ledger is Fine's own record, which he keeps because men like Fine always keep records of their arrangements, because records are leverage, and leverage is the only currency they trust. He paused.
He does not know I have it.
How did you get it?
Carefully.
And something in his expression shifted briefly toward dry, which was so unexpected that she almost lost hold of Lady Ashvale's face entirely.
The payments in this ledger. What are they for?
Information. Specifically, information about me. I am many things, Lady Ashvale. Slow is not one of them.
And you connected this name to the arrangement. To me arriving here.
The timing was not subtle. A marriage contract materializes from a house I have never had dealings with, brokered through channels I cannot fully trace, arriving precisely when Fane's correspondence volume increases sharply. I am many things, Lady Ashvale. Slow is not one of them.
She looked at him across the candle-lit desk in the low, ceilinged archive and thought about the briefing file she had read 3 times in the sanctum, the careful case built against him, the deaths of his brothers, the fear in the city, the servants who had left and not spoken of what they had seen. and she thought about how a case could be carefully built by someone who wanted it to be believed, and how different that was from a case that had simply accumulated from the truth.
Your brothers.
What were you told?
That you convened the inquest yourself. That the findings were yours to control.
I convened the inquest because no one else was going to. I did not kill my brothers. I have spent 3 years trying to find proof of who did,
he said quietly. Because Aldrich Fine had already begun to manage the narrative before my brother Cael was in the ground, and I was 26 years old, and I understood for the first time what kind of house I was living in. He looked at the ledger. I did not kill my brothers. I have spent 3 years trying to find proof of who did. The archive was very quiet. The candle burned between them. Wren thought about Marin's voice in the sanctum, flat and certain and immovable. You will find the access. You will not require more than 3 days. She thought about Sable Orryn's careful hands, placing the contract on the table. She thought about Doran in the city below, rolling his copper coin, waiting for a signal she was no longer certain she wanted to send. 1 day and 4 hours remaining. She stood up and moved to the archive doorway and looked both ways along the corridor out of pure, trained habit, and then she turned back.
If I were to tell you that there is someone in the city below this keep who will act if I do not act first, someone from the same order that sent me, what would you do with that information?
I would tell Captain Stain. He would have the city watched without making it visible that the city was being watched. He is very good at that.
And if I told you that the person who architected this contract and the person whose name is in that ledger may be the same man?
Then I would say that you and I have a shared problem, and that shared problems are considerably easier to survive when the people who have them are not trying to kill each other.
She almost smiled. She caught it before it arrived and filed it away for later consideration. She left the archive without another word and moved back through the keep's inner corridors toward her chamber, and she sat on the edge of the bed in the dark without lighting the candle and turned the situation over in her mind, the way she turned a blade in her hand when she was thinking, feeling for the edge, finding the weight of it. Sable Orryn's name in Fane's ledger meant the contract had not originated with a client outside the Order. It meant someone inside the Order had built it, had selected the target, constructed the evidence, chosen the operative, set the clock, had done all of this with the kind of patience that 4 years of correspondence suggested. This was not a contract, it was an architecture. And she had walked into it carrying a blade and a cover name and 3 days, and she had not asked a single question about who had wanted it built. She reached up and removed the hairpin from her hair and turned it in her fingers in the dark, the sharpened edge catching nothing because there was no light, and she thought about Marin, who was not corrupt but was certain, and Doran, who was decent but obedient, and Sable, who smiled without warmth and kept records of everything, and Varek, who had left a door unlocked for her and used her real name and said, "I am not your enemy," in the voice of a man who was telling the truth. 1 day and 3 hours. Outside her window, the iron lanterns burned along the causeway, and somewhere in the city below, Doran was waiting, and the clock Marin had set was running, and Wren Maddox, who had never in 6 years of contract work failed to complete an assignment, was sitting in the dark trying to figure out how to stop one. The knock at her chamber door came at first light. Not Sarah's knock, which was 3 light taps with the courtesy interval of someone who expected to be welcomed. This was 2 sharp raps close together, the kind that did not ask permission. She crossed the room with the blade already in her hand and opened the door. It was Edric Stane, broad and iron grey, holding a folded piece of paper with the careful grip of a man who understood that what he was carrying mattered. His flat, direct eyes moved to the blade in her hand and back to her face without comment.
His Grace intercepted a letter last night through the external correspondence channel, sealed with a mark he did not recognize.
He recognized it enough to bring it to me before it reached its intended recipient. He held out the folded copy. He thought you might recognize it instead. She took it, unfolded it. The sigil pressed into the dark wax was the shape of an open hand. She did not let anything move in her face. She was very good at that. But her eyes dropped to the single line of text on the page, and something inside her went very quiet, in the way that things went quiet just before they became irreversible. The arrangement has run past its usefulness. Close the house. Sable's phrasing. Sable's hand. She knew it the way she knew her own blade.
You recognize it.
She folded the paper and held it back out to him, and when she spoke, her voice was level, and she was already thinking 4 moves ahead, and none of them were clean.
Tell His Grace that we need to talk, all 3 of us, and tell him to find Aldrich Fane a reason to be occupied for the next 2 hours, because Fane cannot know that letter was intercepted.
Edric looked at her for a long moment, with the eyes of a man recalibrating something he had already decided about her. Then he took the paper and left without another word, and she closed the door and stood in the grey first light of her chamber and thought about Doran in the city below, rolling his copper coin, completely unaware that Sable had just signed his name beside everyone connected to this operation, including hers.